Hey guys, it's David with Becker Art, and we're here on a very hot day. If I'm looking very sweaty, it's because I did not turn on my air conditioner yet in my studio, and so I'm leaving tomorrow, and so I didn't get a chance to do that. But anyways, welcome. Thanks for coming to my channel. That's what it is, my channel. And so today we do have a drink because it's so hot in here. I had to make myself a drink. And I just was at Trader Joe's for the first time in a long time, and I found this watermelon cucumber juice. And I thought I'd put that into a cup and then put a little bit of Malibu rum in there. So cheers, everybody. Watermelon cucumber with Malibu rum. So I had a taste already. It's pretty good. A nice summer drink. It's like the cucumber tastes really good with it, so give it a shot. I've never seen a juice like that. It's watermelon and cucumber, and from Trader Joe's I went and I put a little bit of Malibu rum in it, and I'm gonna give it a 10. It's very good. Great summer drink when it's really hot in your studio. So let's go right to this. Hey Tina, thanks for letting me know this is a dogwood flower because I have no idea about flowers that I'm painting. Or blossoms. This is probably a blossom, right? Blossom branch. And hello, Barbara. And Lois, the fish pond. Okay, welcome. And hey, Barbie. And we are, like I said, tomorrow morning I gotta get to Milwaukee, and I'm going to be taking a ferry across the Lake Michigan, and I'm going to be taking that to Traverse City, to where I'll be doing a plein air for 9 days, actually until the following Sunday. I think I'll be coming back, but so it's a long time, and I'm gonna be camping. So this is gonna be very interesting, and I won't be able to do another thing till next week. I won't give you I won't have a chance to do a newsletter or a thing because I'm gonna be in a tent, and so I don't think I have time to do my things in the tent. I can't set up in the tent, though. I think Thursday is an important day there, so that's the reason I'm not doing that. Anyways, let's go to doing these dogwood flowers, and so that's what we're doing. And so let's go right away to my website to let you know what my website is at davidartbecker.com and beckerart.net. And just if you want to scroll, there's where you get the picture. And if you don't get in the newsletter, always just come to my website. Everything's usually on there. Supplies today are going to be, again, my Holbein paints, my Holbein watercolor brushes, and my Stonehenge. Actually, I'm not using Stonehenge. I'll be using, I got something different, a different panel. It's something different because I'm not using that crescent board anymore. Boy, that's awful stuff. And my Holbein colors. All right, let's go right to our value pattern. And remember, always do your no-tan. Just figure out where your lights and darks are. It's very important to know where your lights and darks are, because that way you know what to put in first. Because you know the Becker Art, 3-step. It's lights first with your color scheme, and then second is your large mediums and large darks, which you can tell right away how to do this painting then. And then the final step are details. So this one will be very simple. You could use stencils for this one to do the circles of confusion circles, or you could put in a neat thing that you can do with stencils. You can put some kind of pattern back there if you want, and so usually I do that in class, and so that's when we were doing flowers or blossoms. All right, so let's go to our tabletop and get started here. Let's go and have some fun. And this is what I want to do to help you guys too, is let's start having fun when we're doing our watercolors. I know sometimes people get frustrated and they really, they're not getting good enough fast enough. Well, to get good fast is you got to do painting a lot. And that's one of the most easiest secrets I can give you is that if you want to learn how to paint really, really good, you got to do a painting every day. You got to really paint. And that's what I'm doing next year, because that's the reason I'm not going to be doing workshops around the country, is because I'm going to do a painting a day next year, and to get a style together and just to work it. I will still be doing these, and I will still be doing, if somebody asks me to do a juried show or something like that, and then anything, then I'll do that. But I'm going to start painting and have fun painting doing it too. And you should too. You should really start having fun. Try to have fun with these. So anyways, we're going to be using Canson board. This is a Canson board. It's a very thin board. You see how thin that is? It's a very thin board. But it's like a matte board. It's almost like a matte board with a piece of watercolor paper to it. Canson. And I used it before, and it's not too bad. It's definitely better than the Crescent I've been using lately, because the Crescent board, man, they just, I don't know, I'm going to actually write to the company with about all the problems I had with their board, because it used to be that back in the day, they used to have great watercolor boards. That's what Irving Shapiro used to use all the time. And I just have not been able to find a good board from them. I do like the Stonehenge aluminum panels, but I'm not going to be using an aluminum panel to do a demonstration here. So here we go. Let's do our lights, right? Because we got to do our lights first. And that means if you want to keep the flowers white, you're pretty much done, right? I mean, you know, you don't have to put masking fluid down. If you wanted to, you could, so you can do a big wash in the background. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put a little bit, I'm going to kind of establish a color scheme. And so that would be, you know, I'm looking at the picture, and do I go with those colors? Kind of brownish, grayish, a little bit of gray for the flowers. I don't, you know, I'm going to go a little bit more colorful than that, and you can too. It's up to you what you want to make the color scheme. And just do your lights first. So I'm going to take a little bit of lavender, because I love purple. And so I'm just going to lay it down on some of the flowers that are in shadow. Because if you keep the white of the paper, that means that's the brightest part of your flower. And that would be where the sun is hitting it. And so a couple of these have pure white, and some have a little bit of lavender or a little bit of gray, whatever you want. It could be pink. You can make it like a little bit pinkish kind of flower. Up to you. But this is the lights now, and we're establishing our light color. First thing we're going to do. And don't worry about staying in the lines, because we're going to be doing negative painting around them afterwards. And so we're just going to kind of go over our white, the white areas, and just, you know, establish a nice light shadow. You know, when wet into wet, let the pigment float and let it look cool. Let it look neat. Cool as in nifty, not cool as in the color cool. You can do that too. You can be warm or cool. It doesn't matter with the light. You do what you want. You do you. And so we're just going to go in here, and you know me, how much I love purple. So of course that's what I'm going to be putting in there. And I love to now have my pigment float. And some of these I could do out of shadow. Like I'll do a wet in the wet, and I'll make them soft edged. So you do that when you wet everything. But right now I'm just wetting my light flowers to get some color in there for the shadowing of the flower. If you want to put like a little bit of pink maybe in the center of the flower right away to kind of establish like the center of the flower, I kind of like to do that sometimes too. I know that they maybe are not pink and that they look a little bit more yellow in there, but I'm going to use pink because pink works really well with purple. And so I'm just finding the center of the flower and putting a little bit of that in there too. And again, if you guys have questions, let me know. I'm here to answer questions and hopefully teach you how to paint. Hey, Holly from the Santa Fe workshop. That was a fun workshop. That was an absolutely amazing workshop, actually. And we even got to go over to see the George O'Keeffe Museum. I mean, that was very, very cool. All right, so we're just kind of putting in some colors, leaving some white of the flowers, and there's no flowers over here, is there? Well, the background has some light things, and so I'm gonna wait for that until later. And this main flower here, there's white on this side, but on this side there's a little bit of the, you can even put like the little, I don't know, lines in there. There's little veins to make the lines of the petals. You maybe do that in there a little bit. And the way you can have fun doing this is also not trying to just sit there and copy to a T everything you see in that picture. Experiment, try different things, and don't have to be so right as like you're a camera. Excuse me. Better have some more of that Malibu and cucumber watermelon drink. I did give it a 9, right? It's a 9. A 9 paintbrush. It's really good. It's really tasty. It's very sweet though, so you know how much I like sweet drinks, anyways. But and especially in the summer, you know, when you it's like we should be on a beach painting this. Well, it's kind of like I said in my newsletter. I missed all of spring. I swear to God, I don't remember even spring being. It's just all of a sudden jumped right into summer again. Always seems to do that. And so there's my lights, right? How simple was that? That's easy, right? It's not that big a deal. Now what I'm going to do is go to my large, mediums, and darks. And to do that, I have to make a plan. I have to kind of put a plan down of how I'm going to go. Like what's my map? How am I going to go so that I don't have to stop? And when I stop, if I do have to start and I have a hard edge there, I want to make the whole background kind of wet into wet and kind of like looking like that where it's, and it looks like up here, I can start up here because it's kind of blurry, and so I'm going to wet that all, and then I'm going to wet it as I go along. I'm not going to wet the whole paper like I normally do sometimes with the sky. I'm just going to go around and just kind of give it water and then apply the paint, the medium paint, the medium, big mediums. And like this whole area is going to be a medium, right? And all my darks are going to be right here. But that's a big area. And so I can go right here, and I can almost stop right here too. And I can do this side by going this way or come back this way, you know, around. It's always good to have a plan so that you know that you're not jumping back and forth. You know, you can't do that. You've got to take a path and then follow that path. I'm going to start the path right up here. I'm just going to put a lot of water on this paper, this board paper. Canson. It was called Canson watercolor board. And so I'm just wetting this area. And then do I want to put like blue in the sky or maybe a little bit of, I've got purple, and what's the opposite of purple is yellow. Yellow-green is what I'm kind of going for here. And then if I have green, then I'm also going to have to put maybe a little bit of warm red or some kind of warm color in there too. So let's start out with a little bit of yellow. And again, you do you. If you want to do different colors, that's up to you. I'm just going to kind of start here with some yellow. That's complements of purple. And then I can also make that green by putting a little blue into that yellow. I don't want it bright green. It's more of a yellow is what I want it to be. A yellow green. And see how this is giving me soft edges because I wet it all. And so I don't have to make a specific leaf in there yet. I can just make it look like the background is floating off the paper. And there is a lot of brown in this, and I'm not a big fan of brown either, but I think brown is a relative of purple, so I make my brown purple. So I just get a little bit of purple, lavender, and it's kind of grayish, and I'll make it a little bit more gray than brown. And see, I'm working wet into wet, and that way it gives me a chance to keep it all soft-edged. I want it all soft-edged right now. With this type of photo, do you create your own center of interest? Well, it's like the flowers are the center of interest, basically, in this area right here. So yeah, this is going to be my center of interest right here, so I'm going to make them the tightest flowers. I guess it could be here too. It could be here. That's actually a better spot for it. And then let this bleed back into the thing. So let's make this our center of interest, and maybe even put another flower back here as I go along here. But now while this is wet, I'm going to try to get as far as to making it done up here, because I don't want to go back in there later when it's all this beautiful wet wash I have in there right now. It's all wet, right? And so I can get all these beautiful edges, soft edges. And there's a hard edge because I didn't wet quite there. But I can, as I'm coming back around, I'll get that part. And like these flowers, I could take my small brush and make a dark, sharp flower too. Watch. I can just take a little bit of greenish, and I've got to make it thick, so I got to use a lot of pigment. And I'm kind of, this green is a little bit too green, so I'm going to make a little bit quinacridone gold with it to make it more golden. And then I'm just going to like make a leaf. It's very thick paint, but see how that's a leaf, and it's going to bleed a little bit, but it's wet in the wet. But if I use enough paint, no water, my brush, like tap your brush to get the water out, and then just go in and get your leaf, get your swipe. Oh, I hear the train coming again. And so just get in there, and this is positive. These are positive leaves. This is not negative. These are just positive dark leaves. done wet into wet so that I have soft edges. I don't want the background to be hard edged back there. I want it like the photo. I really like the photo how that is soft edged. I can write around these flowers. I can do really hard edged, and so I don't wet right there. I wet around these flowers, and then use a little bit of this gray that I used. Actually, a little bit of brownish purple. And I'm using such a small brush. Look at that, that's terrible. That's okay for like drawing a leaf, but don't use it for big areas. You know, go back to your big brush so you can cover a large area and put a little bit more water down a little bit farther, going around. I could have used masking fluid there, but I felt like I can go around it. It's big enough that I can go around this. And this paper is acting really well. It's actually really nice. There's nothing coming through. It's actually a nice paper. Canson. So there's a bright green, but I'm looking for that purple again to make it a little bit darker. And it is kind of gray and purple, right? You can make it blue, you can make it whatever color you want in your color scheme. If you're using blue, then you probably want some orange in there too. But I can add a bluish green. I can do that too. I can just add a bluish green into there. I don't want it too dark by the leaves because I want the leaves to pop out a little bit. And I can go back into leaves later on too with a darker hard edge too. But see, I'm just wetting as I go along. Wet, and apply different colors of pigment. Maybe I'll put a little bit of pink in there. It's just a floaty puddle of water, and you put paint in there. Put paint in there. And that's the fun part. Thanks. Thanks, guys. I'm glad you think it's interesting, the class. Good morning, everyone from Australia. Hey, Marion from Australia. Good morning. Yes, I'm kind of excited to take the ferry across Lake Michigan. It's a 2.5 hour ferry with my car. And I'll be heading across Lake Michigan to get to Monhegan, I think it is. So we get off, and then from there I drive up. And I'm actually going to stop at a gallery where Rocky from Michigan, Pico, Rocky Pico is going to be, him and his daughter have a show in one of the Frankfurt, Michigan. I'm going to stop in there too to see a little show before I get up to, because I have to get up early in the morning because this thing leaves at like 6 in the morning. So, and so see, I was just wet in the wet, and it's all just wet in the wet. Now, if I want some of these petals to have some soft edges, I could do that too by just wetting into the petal. Like let's just wet into the petal here a little bit, and make that a soft edge instead of a hard edge. Because some of them can be like soft edge too. Just always remember, when you want a soft edge, make it wet. And then these leaves are going to be hard edge, so I can go right in there. They're going to be darker, so I can go right in there and just wet that area. Now this is a little bit tough right here. I think I want to stop right here at this branch, but that's going to take a while to get in here. So let me just stop at that branch, and I'll see if I can't make a nice color in there. I like using this pink in there too. That's kind of nice, isn't it? Look at that. You know me, how I like to dip in all my colors. Just really, it's just, why not? Here it's going to be soft edged because I wet it. Always remember, if you want a soft edge, wet it. I know I keep on saying that, but it's so important. The more pigment you use too, the more you can make a line, a harder line than what you're getting if you use a lot of water in your brush. So watch, I can just take this bluish green. I'm not sure what I'm using this color for. I don't have that color here. Let me just add a little bit more brown in there. And so I want to make this a little bit darker over here. So see how I have an edge right there? Because it's starting to dry a little bit here, but it's still wet. But I'm using a lot of pigment, so you can get a pretty hard edge when you use a lot of pigment, even in water. I can make like little leaves in the background. And this is still wet enough that it's going to bleed out and soften on its own. So now I'm going to wet a little bit farther ahead, and I'm going to use that branch as a stopping point because I really can't go beyond that, because if I go beyond that, and actually you can also pull out, I see there's a flower back here, so watch this. I'm going to put down my paint. I think I'm going to use my bigger round brush because I think I do have to do that part through the branch. So I really think I have to do this so that it doesn't look like there's one color on one side of the branch and something else on the other. So let's just do this really quickly. I can always soften these edges if I feel that later on that they're too hard and I want to soften them. But I want to get in here, get this done so I can I'm going to show you how I pull out a flower too. And there's so many colors in here, and this is my large medium, right? This is my large mediums. I can put a little green in there too. I just keep on putting paint in there and just let it float. Let the pigment float. It's floating in a puddle of water, which makes it very fresh and makes even if you're using gray colors, it doesn't make it look muddy. It makes it just look gray, and it gives it a beautiful wash look because you're floating your pigment. It gives you that nice granular wash look. Now here's starting to dry. See, this board's starting to dry. Maybe it's because it's so hot in here. Cheers, everybody. Cheers. And you see how there's grays, but those grays are colorful, and there's some green in there. And you don't always have to use super bright colors all the time, because in nature it's not really that colorful, except for the flowers themselves. Sometimes they're very colorful. But you can do the background that way. I'm trying to get painting outside. You start realizing a lot of different things about when it comes to colors of objects. I was going to show you how to rub out this flower. So you wait until it's not too wet, where it's kind of damp. This is still a little bit too wet, but I'm going to have to remind myself that I want to pull out some of these flowers. If it's too wet, then it's just going to suck right back in there. So you go in when it's just starting to lose the shine, just slightly. Still shiny, but just about. So I'll have to keep an eye on that. And so as I'm going around here, I'm going to see if I can't get really dark in this area. So re-wet this area. Just going to wet it along. I try to evenly wet it too, so that it gives me time. I give myself time so I can get in there. Because if you put some water in there, it will kind of level itself out. When you put a lot of water in there, it levels itself out. See, I'm putting a lot of water in, and if you take your big brush, I can just even it out a little bit so that it's evenly wet. And now I do my wet and the wet washes. And see, this part, that is done for me. And if I feel like it needs something else later on, then I will do something to it. But as long as I keep the wetness right now, that's fine. And now it looks like it's dry enough to get this. There's a couple petals back here. Let me see. As soon as you put your brush down, if you're picking up, take a damp brush, a clean damp brush, put it on your towel, and then just pull out the paint. And you can do this on this board along with Stonehenge, which is not as easy with arches, because arches sucks in a lot of the paint into the paper. So when it sits on top, it's a little bit easier to do this, where you're just kind of pulling out the paint and getting back light. And it also gives you a soft edge, you notice? Because it's still a soft edge because it's wet. I'm just pulling out the pigment, and it's still watery and wet. And there's also a petal right here. And that's how you can also do the circle of confusion circles. I can go in there with a stencil and just do a circle in there and rub it out, because it's really easy on this board to rub out. So I've noticed that up here it's more greeny yellow, and so I'm going to keep that throughout this part. And as you go down, I'm going more to the reddish, gray green. And though I still want to get some of that. Oh, almost in my drink. Whoa. Don't do that. Maybe down here I'll get a little bit of this, maybe I'll get some leaf green in there. I do have leaf green on my palette, which is the green that I made up there. And I can just go right into that area. Right into the leaves, because the leaves are going to be darker anyways. These are all leaves right here. Now see, it's dry so fast. Oh my gosh, this is drying so fast. as soon as you touch the paper and you notice you have too much water in your brush and it got drier, that's when you can see right away that you're going to get a watermark. But just add more pigment. Just get your pigment in there. Let the pigment float. What's your favorite thing to do when you're floating your pigment? Do you do it really thick? Do you do it with a certain color? Do you spray it afterwards? Put salt in it? Do you do you tap it like this? What is it that you make? How do you make your washes look great? Your wet and wet washes, I should say too. Like, what is it that makes your wet and wet washes? Now, there's a bunch of little white things back there. I'm gonna do those like I did this. I'm gonna take it and just bring it out with after it's dry or after it's wet. It's gonna go in there. And this part is really dark over here, so I'm getting a little bit more thicker, dark, reddish purple. I still want the green, but I want the yellow green, not the blue green. And this is like the light over here. I'm doing this very slow, ain't I? Talking too much. Look at that. When you add a little bit of the whitish or the more opaque colors, they kind of give you those little fingers. That is really cool looking. Thanks, Sylvia. Hi, everyone. Hey, Kathy. All right, so I'm going to pull a little bit. I'm going to take my flat brush and I'm going to pull out some of those roundness, those like blurry circle confusion circles. So there's one right here across the branch. I'm just going to take my brush and just do a circle with it, pulling out the paint. And again, this works better on Stonehenge and a panel like this where it doesn't soak in so much. It would be hard to do what I'm doing right now on like arches because it soaks in so much. So for that, just later on use a stencil. Just use a stencil with a magic eraser. But just look at this. I've just taken with my brush or rinse out my brush and just do a round circle with my brush, my flat brush. I'm just going in a circle. It's pulling out the paint, but I still have enough water in my brush that it's just it may give it a little bit of a water or like a watermark, but look at it, that's pretty cool, huh? Not bad. I'll do one up here. Let's see what happens if it's dry already. So up here it's drier. It's not completely dry, but I'm just going to pull out some paint and see. I can even do it while it's almost dry. I can just pull out the paint. And make those circle of confusion circles. And if you get too much water, you'll get a watermark. But if you don't have a real lot of water, it doesn't have anywhere to bleed, right? So don't use as much water. Now over here, I'm also going to, since it's still a little wet, I'm going to add a little bit of lavender to that. Maybe a little bit of that red. That's kind of neat. That little warmth. But see, you do have to get this while it's all wet. Otherwise, you don't get that soft edges. And then it doesn't look like a background then. If you don't get the soft edges, you don't get the background. So we want it to look like the background, right? And so try to do it wet in the wet. I've taught you guys a lot about that, about always how to work into a wet wash and working wet in the wet. And this is one of those reasons why you want to do that, so that you can make it look blurry, like it's in the distance. And you also make, see, it's just still wet. Control your watercolor in the wash. Once you know how to do that, you're more than halfway there to being the greatest watercolor you're ever going to be. And so let's wet the top now. Let's take our big brush and wet the top here. And so I'm just going to start here. These are going to be dark. I'm just going to wet this whole area. See how I'm taking a path? I'm taking a path, and that way you're not jumping up here, because you can see how important it is that you work and they get that area done. Like, I don't want to go back into this area ever again. I may have to. Sometimes you do have to go back in, but you try not to. You try to get that all done. I'm wetting around these flowers again, and all the way up here, all the way up to here. And I haven't been using enough paint because this really sucks it up. This board really is drying fast, and it's just sucking up this water like a sponge. All right, so use the same color I started up with up on top here, and then I just come down. And that's, what is that? That's a white flower, so that's cool. Another white flower. And then up here there's some white, and so I'm just going to keep it white, like the white of the paper. That's the part that's fun, when you don't have to do anything because you're using white on the paper. Boy, that's, the greatest thing about watercolor is that sometimes you can use the white of the paper as your light. Let me put a little lavender up here. Background or negative spaces. Well, the negative, we're going around negative spaces are the flowers, so that is negative painting around the flowers. So the background, yeah, and that's a negative space, but you're pulling it out and you're not going around it, so that's not kind of negative painting. Negative painting is basically like what I'm doing here around these flowers. And there's some dark back up here, so just take dirty color off your palette and just keep it soft, keep it soft. It's one of the biggest things about this painting I want you to do. Don't do the background hard-edged. Just do the flowers hard-edged, and just give me a nice wet in a wet background. Really work hard at that. Really try to get that to be what it is. I know it's easier to do without doing it hard, or doing everything hard-edged. It's easier, but give yourself a shot. Try it. You'll like it because it'll look blurry. And it really isn't that hard, and it actually helps you to understand how much paint you need in your brush to keep it from running all over the place. Now let's make these leaves a little bit, let's like make a leaf, like in a distance. Maybe for that I'll use my round brush because that's a better leaf kind of drawing tool. See, if I use a thick amount of pigment, I can still make an edge in a wet wash. Here's some branches coming up in here. See how it's all still wet, and so I can get in there. There's some really dark parts here. Maybe a little bit of green. And do remember that it's going to dry 20% lighter. It always dries a little bit lighter when it dries, so make it just slightly darker than you want it. And I'm going to do the nervous twitch stroke. See the nervous twitch? It makes it look like grasses, or do I want grasses? Probably not, huh? Look at how dry it's getting so fast. Okay, I'm going to leave that alone. I kind of like that over there. Now down here, though, it's got to match these colors, so I got to figure out what I used there. And I took everything off my palette here, so I have to make it up again, so I'm not quite sure all the colors I used to get all that. I know I used this color, so let's go in there, put a little bit of that, but that's a little bit grayer. So orange to orange and blue to make it gray. Makes it brown. And then that's like a purple. I'll put purple in there. There it is. There's the color. Sometimes you have to remember what you used so that you can go back and make it a color again. So memorize your lines. Memorize your lines like a actor. He's got to memorize what colors you used. And this is a leaf, so let's just go over that and make that darker later. And I'll put some of that green in there too right now. What the heck? Let's put some of that green, bright green in there. And still not gray enough, so there was a little bit more purple I put in there, and this ground and this brown here. So that'll make it a little bit grayer. Some leaves. There's actually a light right here. I'm just going to make it a little bit harder edged. See how it already dried? And it's already, I mean, it's hard. I know it's hard, especially when your room is like 100 degrees inside the house. But turn on your air conditioner. It'll help you a lot. and all these little stems. And I'm going to start my dark details because I've got all my large, mediums, and darks now. Though this down here should have been a little bit darker, but to do anything to that, I would have to wait until it totally dries. If I want to go back into this spot, which I could, I would just have to wait for that to dry and then re-wet it. And then just make sure I have, this time, make it a little bit darker. But I don't think I will do that because it's nice and clean right now, and I'll leave it at that. Right here I will, because there's a little bit of, I'm going to show you how to get rid of some of the watermarks that I had gotten right there. But some of this is okay. I don't mind this. We're going to do make a little branch up here. We're just going to put a little branch and okay, look at a little kind of. That's nice thing about when you're doing blossoms or outdoor. You know, you don't have to be so detailed with it because it's not like you're doing a portrait. If you're off a little bit on this, it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter if you're off just slightly on the. You know, if your branch is a little bit too thick or whatever, it doesn't matter. Put a little bit of this pink over here too, because I use some of it's a little bit of opera mixed in with the green, which makes it brown because that's what the complements do. They kind of make a brown or a gray. Oh, where'd all the questions go? Oh, there they are. All right, so now what is it? Details. And details are the most fun, you know, because then things start looking like what they're supposed to look like. Like you can tell a branch from a leaf from a flower. Wow, that's not bad. Okay, so how do we make some of this branches? So I'm going to start with the branch being dark, and then if it needs light, I'll rub it out. So I'll take some of this darker branch color. I'm just going to start over here and just get this branch in there. And then from the branches comes a bunch of shoots of twigs that go up. I'm using a little bit of purple, and it's kind of a brown, mixing with purple with the the green I had down there. And now there's a bunch of stuff going on here. This all can be hard edged now. Don't be afraid of hard edges, and I want to make it really dark, like the shadow part of it. Remember, this part has to be the most important, so most contrast, most color right here, because this is where the center of interest is. And now we can also get darker leaves, another branch right here, and this branch goes up this way. Now there's going to be a bunch of dark leaves there, so I'm not going to touch that part. And this actually goes over this. And there's a little bit of green in this brown too, so that it's just like reflecting into the branch. And branches, I'm not sure which way this branch is coming from. I'm not sure if it's coming from this way or if it's coming from up here down this way. I think it's coming down this way, but I don't think it's that important to know that. Another train. What the heck's going on here? All right, let's get some dark leaves in here now. And I was talking to somebody yesterday or the day before, I forget what day it was. All right, train, don't interrupt me when I'm talking here. But I was talking to somebody about how easy it is if you just use three colors. Because I did that class where we just had three colors, the red, blue, and yellow, and it's really good to use that once in a while and just try to make all your colors up. Like just use three colors. Use the red, blue, and then also use white and black. You can use that. So 5 colors. You can get that box of 5 colors, and it's amazing what you can do with those colors. Because really everything's made from those 3 colors, but you know you get a difference. But when you do that, your paintings are very well. You're using a good color scheme because you're mixing those colors, and that's all you get. And so usually you get some really good color schemes going with those 3 colors. a big leaf. Now these are a little bit greener, just slightly greener. I don't mind having these a little bit more green. But I, again, don't want them like a tube green, or where they're so green it just doesn't look like that in nature. Because there's a lot of orange and green in nature. I was going to say, since I've been out there painting a lot of green last week when I was in Cedarburg, I really noticed that it's a lot of gray. And if it's bright green, it's yellow green. It's like a leaf green. It's really, really bright. And so, that's where you get your bright greens. But the dark greens and the medium greens, they're very orangey. They're very gray. They're not quite as... And the dark are really bluish and purples in your greens. There's a lot of purple in green, too, when out there in nature. So when you're out there, look and compare different greens and colors to things that you have on you. Maybe that's a green purse, or look at green that's something made of green, like a green color, and then look at what that is compared to the color of your leaves and grass and all that, because it's not as green as you think it is. At least I've been finding out that it's not that green. Another thing about about outdoor painting, plein air painting, is that I find that you really, really need to simplify, because there's so much stuff out there, and you really need to take and simplify big shapes. And also, a lot of times, because we're working from photographs all the time, you do, like here, the background's blurred. Well, what if it wasn't blurred? What if this photograph wasn't blurred? And that's how you see outside, because your eyes are so good that when you're seeing something like the background, it's not blurred like this. This is the camera did this to this picture. But when you're out there, everything is in focus, because everything you look at becomes in focus, right? No matter how far away it is. But you have to then break down that and become a camera, because you have to kind of make some things blurry, or make them lighter, or push them to the background, because you cannot paint exactly what you see out there, because you won't get the effect of it unless unless the effect is that you're seeing is very like overlapping and you get dimension and stuff. But usually it's not, and usually you got to make that stuff up. So now we're going to do a couple more leaves right here. And then there's a couple more branches right here. Notice that there's a bunch of dark green leaves over here, which are kind of dark. There's a little bit more blue, dark blue in there. And see, it's like one brush stroke. I try to do it in one brush stroke, so I keep it loose, but looking like a leaf. And those leaves look like pussy willows. That wasn't the best idea to do what I did there. Oh well, it's a different kind of plant that's up there. So now we get to, what time is it anyways? Okay, we got plenty of time. Cheers, everybody. Cheers. I hope everybody's having a great spring/summer. And so look at I want to show you again this area right here. They got those marks in there. And so let's say I want to get rid of those, because that's kind of like that was drying, and so I get watermarks. And so if I want to get rid of that, all I have to do is re-wet that area to a certain point. Like if I don't want it to be affected, I do it really lightly. So this area right here, I want to do it really light. Just put some water there. Very light. I'm just applying water very light. But when I get over here, I'm gonna tickle it a little bit. I'm gonna tickle it away. I'm gonna tickle away the little part that made a watermark. And by tickling, I mean just rubbing it lightly back and forth, just lightly, a light touch. And then apply paint into that area now, because this is all wet. You may not be able to see that, but this is all wet now again, like I did my first wash. So now I'm gonna pick up the same kind of color. And actually, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that, because I kind of like this to be on that side too. So that was a little bit of this brown. This is a midazoline brown. And so I'm just going to apply that into the area so that it kind of matches. It's going through this way, and then I'm going to come back in here. This is all wet, so it's floaty again. So all just floaty. And that's a term. That's the very professional term, floaty. So then we're going to put some green in there. Not too much water, because again, if you want to get water out of your brush, just take it to the towel and let it go. And like, don't do the side that you had the paint on. Just pull it like this with the paint on one side. On the back of the brush, get rid of the water like this. And then put it in there, the paint, on the opposite side. Because if I just pick up when it's really wet, then I'm just putting more water on top of water, and that's not going to work so good. A little bit more pigment. I'm going to get some of that gray-green. And so how do you make gray-green? You put some red in it. So make your green first. Put some red in there. This is going to be a little bit thicker. And I can also wet it as I go along too. Same, just like through here. Like I can just keep wet it again with my brush as I'm going along. But when I get to a spot like that, I gotta maybe use my bigger brush to put a little bit more water and pigment into that area. And so you won't be able to see later on that I had rubbed that part out. And maybe let's make this let me just wet this area, because I kind of rubbed away have to rub away the flour here. Still make it soft edged. There's definitely ways of going back into areas. People always think that you can't go back into areas, but yes, you can. If I couldn't, boy, I'd be a really bad artist, because I do that all the time. I got to go back into the area. So it's just the ability of re-wetting and just trying to do it again. There's many times I go back in, because you don't always get it the first time, especially when you're fast and you're kind of hurrying to get this area done, and so it's not as easy as it looks sometimes, and so you just go back in if you don't get it the first time. If you don't get it a second time, maybe a third time will work. Here I'm re-wetting this area. Remember how I pulled out some things? I can pull out this area too. I pulled out that area, and you can do it while it's wet or dry. Cheers, Mary Beth. All right, time for details. I only have a couple more minutes. No, I got a little time. So with the details, I'm going to go into the flowers now and really make them as detailed as I can. And so if I see there's some stamen in here that are light, that are flying over the side here. Well, I'm just going to try to do the darks in here first, like a little dark in the inside here. Give it maybe a little bit more detail. And then I may make some of the stamen a little bit darker instead of white, just because I drew my flower a little bit differently. And that happens too. Sometimes you don't draw exactly what's there, and so you compromise and you improvise too. You improvise what you had put down, and a little bit of red here. Because see, it goes down into this area. And then it kind of wisps upwards, like the little wispiness. Just maybe not exactly how this flower looks, but I'm making it this way, because it's my flowers. It's my flower, or my blossoms, and I'll do them any way I want. But see how the background was one wash, basically, and then I went in, like this is a little bit weird now, because this color is nowhere over here. So while that's still drying, I got to get some of that color in there. So maybe a little bit ultramarine blue into this darkness. Because it's still wet, so might as well go in here and get it now, because I need to get some of that blue in there. While it's wet, you can go back in. It's just don't make it wetter than it is. Just make it the same wetness, and then apply your paint. thick if you want to make a line. Like maybe there's a little couple of branches coming this way too. There we go, see? And how about a leaf? A leaf with a flat brush. Oh, okay, that works too. Alright, back to the flowers. Getting them to look real. And they are actually kind of, no, they're kind of red. And this one, what's this one going on here? So this one's completely hidden by this leaf, but that way I didn't do that. And so I'm just going to have to make this up again, improvise. Again, you can always improvise. You don't have to make it exactly like the photograph. If you know what this flower looks like, you make it up a little bit too. I'm putting pink in there instead of what the color is that's really there. I'm not sure. Sometimes if you're there on the spot, you can tell exactly what the flower is, but in a photo, if it's only depends on what the photo had taken. So sometimes you can't tell. So that's when you go study them, or you know them a lot about them. Like Tina knows about these because she even knew what plant this was. So now I'm going to do shadows from one plant onto the next. How about that, a shadow? See, just a little lavender, because that's a little bit darker. And do the same thing up here, do a little shadowing. This should be soft edge though up here, because I had that all wet in the wet. Just kind of giving it textures. Any kind of detail I can find. And then there could be also a shadow of a branch across them. And now the line work that I put in here, I can probably erase it because it's pencil line. Because sometimes it does seem like it bothers me a little bit, but not so much that that I'm gonna try to make sure I get it out of there. If it stays in there, that's fine too. Or I could have this leaf underneath this and then rub out and have the leaf underneath there. See how easy it is to rub on this board? And then I'll take that green and I'll make this leaf come over this way and cover up a little bit of this flower. Then up here we're going to do a leaf just so they make it a little bit different here. This seems to be a little bit too long, this petal, so look at this. I'm just going to take this color that I have in here already and then just shorten that petal up a little bit. Alright, so last but not least, the super fine details, the dots. Aren't there a bunch of dots in the stamen? So up here we got a bunch of little red dots. I'm going to take my small round pointy brush and just start putting these little round dots up there. I'll be adding the stamen to them. I think that's what it's called. And then over here, it's all around, so little dots everywhere, because it's coming straight at you a little bit. And that's another thing you want to always kind of pay attention to, like which ones are at you, which ones are going away from you. Like this one is a little bit to the side. Little dots. 6 more minutes. I could use a little bit brighter red, so this is a gouache red that I had in there before, so that's okay. I'm gonna use some gouache red. And there's a little dots. And if you're really careful in making dots, don't dab them like I did there. They don't even look really nice. Do them nicely. They can make them really small. And just make small little dots, because it's good to have details. And make the details very detailed. That makes sense, right? Make details detailed. Alright, now let's make little lines to those little lines. Well, make them all the same though. These are different from those, and so make them a little bit the same. These are too small and those are too big, so we're going to take a little bit of both. I'm going to take a little bit of lavender for my stems of these things. Some are dark, some are light. And this would be good to do like a little postcard and stuff, or your greeting card. This kind of painting, you know, like you can do fast and just do like a little greeting card, a little postcard, a little thank you card. You know, just do some petals and put some little petals and branches in there, and all looks good, right? And I'm gonna spatter. I'm gonna spatter because I just like to spatter. Because it's like too clean for me. I get nervous when it's this clean. So let's take a little bit of green. I'm just gonna take a little bit, little dots. I just like it being a little bit messier. And here I'm gonna do some light washes. Like if it gets in the sky, wipe it off. I'm gonna take a little bit of light and even some white spatter. I'm using my big brush, tap it on my finger. You know, it just gives, to me, it gives reality to it. It's not so perfect, and you know, I just like the look of the spray. All right, there it is, guys. I think I'm done. And so I'm probably, again, like I said, next week there is no paint along. So do one of them that you haven't done yet that are on my site, or just go outside and just do some sketching with watercolor. You don't have to do a whole big scene. You can just do things. You can do like a potted plant. You could do a flower, just the flower itself. You don't always have to make it a big scene. When it comes to watercolor, you can just learn how to use the watercolor and do a certain object. You know, try that. And have a nice time out there while you're doing it. And have fun. Try to have fun. I just drew a postcard of this for our friend Maura while watching you paint. Well, thanks, Tina. See? She went right ahead and did a postcard. So thanks, guys. And I will see you probably in a week and 2 weeks. And you'll probably be seeing what I'll be painting in Grand Traverse City. And the plein air event that I'm going there. And I'll be painting in my tent. So hopefully it's not this hot, and because I don't have any air conditioning inside the tent. So hopefully it'll be nice and cool at night. All right. So until